Well, welcome back, everybody, for we're in the 11th episode of the My Generation podcast, and on today's show, we're going to be talking to Chammi Udlamata about meditation. I've been meditating for the past few years on and off, going from habitual 20-minute daily meditations to infrequent but much more difficult strong determination sits. So today, we're speaking to Chammi from Canterbury about her experiences with meditation. Chammi, welcome to the show.
Hi Max, thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, you obviously are involved in meditation. Could I ask why you started firstly?
I think it wasn't such thing as I started to meditate. I think so. Just to start with saying, I'm Buddhist by religion, so I was born a Buddhist. My parents were. So as part of the upbringing that I had, and I went to Sunday school, so I kind of got introduced to meditation as a child. So it's not something I learned as such. It kind of came through time. It just happened, and it was part of the practice. So I didn't really know the word meditation as such, but I always meditation. So,
it was just a practice that happened. You didn't even have to put a name to it. It was just something you
I suppose I probably initially didn't know the English name to it, but I knew a different language. So around me, meditation was very common. It's part of your daily life and practice, I think. Mindfulness is probably more the word than meditation. Yes, I would say yes. It was very common.
So how does mindfulness differ from meditation?
I think for me, when I hear the word meditation, it involves you sitting down in one place, quietening yourself for a period of time.
Yeah.
To me, mindfulness is day-to-day activities being performed with great care, in a way, just aware of your surroundings and everyone around it. So it's more like being a bit gentle, I suppose. Yeah, that's how I describe it. Yeah.
So is it external awareness versus meditation, which is internal awareness, would you say is the difference?
Yep, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, definitely. I would say that, yeah.
But, and you said gentle. So in terms of taking more care with what you do on a day-to-day, is that in just sort of what you do for work or home life, or just absolutely everything?
I think absolutely everything. It's I would say a state of like being, or in a way every aspect of your life being gentle to your environment around you, internally and externally, because that's very important. I think you have to be kind to yourself and kind to things around you.
Yeah, so you think, and that'll come back around, won't it? Because if you're nice to everything around you,
I hope so. Yeah. Well, no, I think in life is so challenging. If you can be kind to what's around you, it will definitely work itself around, and it creates a lovely energy around you, I think. And people who are more mindful, I think you gravitate to and attract to because they are that way, if you are the same mindset as well.
And so it's in terms of having a positivity to everything, so it rubs off on others. So you say mindfulness is about being constantly mindful. Do you ever have points where you do reflection work? So you sit down and you'll look at how a week's gone or a period of time has gone.
Specifically, oh wow, that's a good question. I think yes, I personally would practice that, but I wouldn't put it under a bracket of practicing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, and myself, around like the end of the year or near a birthday would get a little bit more on thoughts that you've had. Have you achieved something, accomplished something, what I want to set for the future? So in that way, people do go back and remind yourself. I would say for goal setting as well, like maybe from a professional perspective, you might have that as well. But yeah, that's also mindful, isn't it? Like thinking about it, because
you're looking at a perspective from the past and seeing
if it fits your future plans, or do you want to change and do something completely different? That would make you want to reassess things. I think that does make sense. Yeah.
And so, in terms of the more meditative side, you said you're a Buddhist, and how would you say? Because I do, I guess, sort of a more form of Western meditation, which is 20 minutes. You sat with someone talking you through it. That's a style that I see is more common amongst the people I know.
Yeah.
Is that a form of meditation you do, or how does it differ?
Okay, so my favorite, or my the way I practice on a daily basis would be I do meditation in the morning and in the evening. If I would try, my expectation of myself is to try and do it twice a day. And I do it's breathing, watching your breathing.
Yes.
And that I don't actually have a timer as such, that I wouldn't say I do it for 10 to 20 minutes. I just go to a place where it becomes really quiet in my mind. So till I achieve that point and be very comfortable with myself, that's what I do. So I just close my eyes, sit down on the ground. I don't sit on a chair or anything like that. It's always seated on the ground. I find that very comfortable.
Yeah.
And then
do you have like a back support, or is it just cross-legged?
Cross-legged on the ground. I actually prefer not to have a back support. It just makes me sit up straight.
Yeah.
And just align yourself and assume like your spine is like a set of pearls. You're kind of making it go straight and get that almost like that axis aligned and set in a very comfortable way for yourself.
Yeah.
And then close your eyes, concentrate on your breathing. And it's not a forceful breath. Let's watch myself breathe in and out normally. And because you can hear a lot of other thoughts bubbling in your background. Just quietens itself down little by little, and not hold on to those thoughts, and just let them go, and more like observing of your thoughts.
I think observing is a good word, because the meditation I do is sort of more, you let the thoughts happen, but you see where the mind's going, because then when you get to the end of the practice, because I think, isn't there that good quote, is what I think is what I am. So what your mind is going through all day, you can say, oh, these are the things that my mind is prioritizing.
Okay, so you actually watch to see what it does and where it goes. So can you direct those thoughts, or do you just observe them more like it?
I feel like what I'm trying to get towards is observation. I think it's very, very easy, which is why I think meditation is quite difficult. It's very easy to try and control thoughts and direct them, whereas what I try to do is not direct them, see where they go, because that's when my mind's at its most natural, where it's just going with
the flow.
And wherever it ends up, it could be thinking about people in my life, it could be thinking about what I want to eat for dinner, it could be thinking about an embarrassing moment from the previous day.
Do you even daydream? Like, do you go into like a sort of like more of an imaginative state where you kind of think of like, what if this happens and you're in space or something?
Yes, yeah.
But that's really cool as well, because I think a lot of people don't get the time to daydream anymore. They're very task oriented. Or maybe they just do and not pay attention. It's time to pay attention.
Well, one of the people I follow for meditation says that journaling, by just taking time to sit and contemplate, it's contemplation, is actually something we should all be doing, because if you literally sit with your thoughts and you just ask yourself questions, that's different from meditation in a way, because...
Is that more reflective?
Yeah.
I think that's what you said. Do you reflect? Yeah. So do you journal then after or before meditation yourself?
No, I should.
You should? You think you should? Okay.
But
I like journaling, but I do it after meditating or not. It depends. I think it's a form of... I think it's a different form of quietening your mind. Sometimes things that are running around in your head, if you write them down, it's like a physical activity to be able to get it out of your system onto paper.
Yeah.
So you might not even read it again as well, just put it away, but it's outside of your mind as
I think
yourself.
the closest I've come to doing that is I've talked about this a lot before, but it keeps coming up in these topics. I did a 3-day retreat to Brighton, which on my own I just went and didn't use any internet or anything. And this was what me and Dan talked about on the first episode about social media detoxing.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I mentioned this, but I journaled...
Actually, you haven't to me. This is new, yeah.
I wrote a poem about Brighton.
Wow.
And then journaled my thoughts about the event. Because I felt like, because I wasn't using my phone and because I was tasking myself with just looking at what's around me, I took in Brighton in a way that meant I remembered things about it. The city felt more full to me, because when you go into autopilot, I think sometimes you can miss the beautiful bits. I was able to write with such accuracy, which was nice.
Would you say accuracy or beauty? Write with more beauty, because I think you... or maybe it could be accuracy as well, because you saw more things.
I think in terms of accuracy, what I mean is like I could recall more of what I experienced.
Not
in terms of being like the wall was blue. and that guy over there was wearing yellow shoes. No.
Maybe he did. I don't know.
I don't know. But I mean, in terms of...
It's Brighton after all.
Yeah,
It'll be very colourful.
Yeah, that would be very...
There will be somebody wearing yellow shoes.
If it's happening anywhere, it's happening in Brighton.
That is true.
But I think just in terms of... I could recall my experience better, because I'm terrible with memory. My sister remembers my life better than I do.
But isn't that her perspective of your life versus your life?
Yeah, but I mean, like, events. She'll come up to me and say, oh, remember that time we went and did this thing? No, I don't. And I think a trip like that, I've done so many amazing things either side of it, but I remember it so well because that's all I did was observe the place.
So you are, would you say, by cutting out the technology part, you were able to better meditate or better observe?
Yes.
So you were less distracted.
Yeah, I think it's a distraction thing. Would you say distraction plays into meditation and mindfulness? Because you've done it for so long. Would you say you've seen improvements in your own life in terms of distraction compared to those around you that don't meditate, maybe?
I haven't really looked at it that way.
No.
But personally, I can only talk about myself. I think when I call it my practice as well. Because it is a practice. You need to make time for it and make it a priority and then actually follow through with that commitment. So if I am practicing, like for example, if I say I'm doing meditation morning and night and I'm doing it consistently for a period of time, I feel a lot calmer. And if I move away from the practice, because I'm not perfect. There are lots of times that I've not done any meditation because of whatever life challenges, and I find different ways of doing things. I think it's provided me with a clear head to do what I need to do. Literally carves space in my head. For myself, that's my experience, because I work a lot with computers. I've got a lot of screen time. And it's quite hard on my eyes. So if I come home and then if I have half an hour or 20 minutes, whatever time I have, if I can keep my eyes closed and just do meditation, that's a way of giving that cutout for myself.
It gives your eyes a rest. It
does give my eyes a rest. I think focusing so close on a screen for like good 10 hours.
Wow.
It does. I
work with a lot of screens. I have the same sort of feeling as you.
Yeah. I would love to just sit and watch a tree, for example. That might be just also a type of meditation that people practice that allows you to look at things and just enjoy the beauty around you, really. I mean, how many people would just sit and watch a television, but then go watch a tree? Nobody would be interested. But I think that is so... I mean, that window is so pretty. Just the green in there is really calming for your eyes. So I got into meditation, into this sort of double twice a day routine, specifically to sort of counteract the level of activity that I might be going through.
And so you say about closing your eyes versus looking. Do you mix it up? Do you have your eyes closed all the time, or like you say with the beautiful view, do you take a spot of nature and look?
No, I've been, I think, quite practiced the breathing technique and that meditation. It's just my almost default. Actually, I've not tried the eyes open. You mentioned that to me earlier, and I said to you, oh my God, that sounds so intense, because I can't concentrate on one thing. So I think reducing the level of stimuli allows your mind to concentrate on one thing. So I just cut it down all the way to concentrating on breathing. But your ears are always listening.
Yes.
So you're constantly listening to that sound on the background, or did my phone go off, or something like that. So it's all of those distractions. If you can reduce it, like remove your technology, be in a quiet, calm place where you cannot be distracted, I think it allows you to come to that very calm state faster. But practice also helps.
I'll talk about the technique I explored in a bit more detail later. But regarding hearing, I mean, I have tinnitus, which is the ringing.
I too as well.
Yeah, I have the ringing in the right ear, and so with it quietens that in meditation. And I've noticed that the type of meditation I do is called strong determination sitting, and it's one of the hardest forms, I think. because you sit cross-legged for an hour, eyes open, don't move. And I did one of them straight after I started to get tinnitus. And I found that so difficult. But if I meditate now, I can go probably about 20 or 30 minutes without noticing it, even existing at all.
That's, from my perspective, I'm going to ask a question of, what do you concentrate on though? So like, are you concentrating on your posture? Are you concentrating on... So where's your point of focus in that? Because I concentrate on the breathing. What do you do when you do the focus? What are you focusing on?
Well, I want to ask you about breathing in a minute, but for me, I'm trying to keep it general. I'm trying to focus on everything independently, because I think body awareness is something that's really difficult to achieve, and I've not got there yet. I really haven't. This is why when you recommended massaging to me before, I've
massage when you
it,
had it. Yeah,
because noticing the points of stress. So when I'm meditating, I focus a lot of time on my posture and a lot of time on feeling into my own body, like feeling how my feet feel in my shoes, feeling how my shoulders feel, feeling how my jaw feels, because your jaw and your ears are linked. And because my tinnitus wasn't caused from loud noise exposure, so I think it was caused due to a buildup of earwax, but also due to tension in my jaw, because I clench it. And through meditation, I've noticed that. Hadn't noticed it before. It's one of those things. I noticed the stuff in my shoulder. Well, you noticed that I had tension in my shoulder.
I was like, Max, what have you been up to?
It's just sitting at a desk. But I only noticed it, A, because of you, but B, because of the meditation. Because I came to you saying, I noticed it.
Yeah. So you actually do concentrate a lot on your posture.
Well, yeah.
And do you work from head to feet? Like, do you follow something or no?
Random. I tend to focus on the things where when my mind's wandering, I'm like, I haven't thought about how my knees are feeling in a while. Let's put the focus there. I try to also focus on the ones that I'm not thinking about a lot, because I think about my back a lot because I had back problems.
Because you got pain triggering you to think about something. Okay.
I mean, I don't have them as much anymore, but it's where my attention often goes.
Yeah.
But I'm not thinking about my left elbow. I'm not thinking about my toes. It's things like that, because you don't notice it.
Yeah.
But it's important to.
But wouldn't you think it'd be really interesting? Do you think we'll get anything done if you could hear everything that your body was doing?
No. I think because I'm trying not to make it an overwhelming thing.
Yeah.
It's like when you finish a good yoga session or something, and all your muscles are going off, and you can feel them at their fullest. It's that kind of feeling I want to get, but not just when I'm doing yoga, where like you're feeling into your body, but it's not overwhelming. It's that kind of thing where your muscles are activated and you notice them.
So you're trying to reach to that sort of mind state through just meditation?
Well, I could say that if it's quote unquote a goal, that would be good. Because I notice when, I don't know if you feel the same, when I type on a computer, you're thinking about what you're typing, but you're not focused on your body at all. It's all the screen. So like you as a person almost disappear because it's just type. And your hands that are doing all the work, I don't feel my hands. I can't feel.
So you're not conscious of it. You just
it's happening.
It's unconsciously happening. Wow, that's a very different. So my goal of meditation isn't that at all.
What's your goal?
Quieten your mind.
Yeah.
And it's not about it's not about being or thinking about the physical aspect or anything like that. I think for me, I would say everyone's got aches and pains, and I've got sports injuries from different.
I remember you've mentioned your sports injuries.
It's a few times, I think.
Just a
sorry,
Max.
I know. I got to stop these things somehow. But I think for me, it's all about quietening the mind, and it's not too much on the physical. But what you mentioned about the yoga, I think if you practice yoga as well, and then have that awareness of your body, and then be able to practice meditation on top of that, I think it kind of balances it out. Nice. You do the body and make it coming to almost like an alignment, and then be able to do the yoga.
That's interesting. Brings in both.
And I found doing meditation really easy if you've done yoga. Like if you do a session of yoga, and then because most yoga classes that you could go to tend to have a meditation at the end of the class, which allows you to relax the body and then also calm your mind. So I think that sort of feels like a holistic way of looking at it.
So do you do yoga with meditation?
Not with meditation, but I would say, yes, I do yoga.
And I wanted to I was really curious about breathing techniques because I haven't tried that at all.
There's no technique as such. It's just watching you breathe, like watching yourself breathe. That's it. It's close your eyes. Don't stop breathing, obviously. Just
hold your breath.
No, that's the thing, because a lot of people are like forcing your breath or holding your breath. It's not that. Just close your eyes, calm yourself down, and just forget about what is that you're going to do or not do, and just follow your natural breathing pattern. It's just, you're going to inhale and exhale out of your nose. So your mouth is closed, and just concentrate on the tip of your nose so you can actually feel the air moving into your body and then coming back out. So that's all. You just calm your mind to the point where that is the only set of thoughts that you have. And
now I can sleep.
You can fall asleep.
Yeah. No, I can open my eyes now.
No, I think if you because a lot of people do fall asleep when they do meditation.
I've had it once and I fell back off my chair.
Did you feel good or bad for falling asleep?
It's interesting because I feel like for meditation, you should be aware of what's going on, because it's about an awareness of you and what's around you for me. So I think that if you've fallen asleep, you've sort of lost a little bit of your awareness, but in a way it's good because it's calming. So
no, I think you really needed to sleep because
at that time
you might be lacking of sleep. So I think a lot of people I have spoken to always say, oh, I fall asleep when I do meditation. And I'm like, were you tired at the time? Did you really need to meditate, or did you really need to sleep?
Yeah,
and then they most of the time they reply back and said, oh yeah, I should have slept. Probably maybe. But it's that plays part. So if you do meditation in the morning, I find that you would not have that situation where you'd fall asleep on you.
You see, I preferred to meditate before bed, only because I feel like part of what it does for me is calms me for sleep.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I go to sleep, it takes me roughly about 45 minutes to an hour from when I lie down in bed to actually falling asleep.
Oh, wow.
Most nights on average. And meditation makes it easier, makes it take less time. I don't know. I feel like even if I try and stay completely still when I'm trying to sleep, meditating before sleep makes it a lot easier. But there's a lot that can be said for that, like phone watch chimes and things, and using technology too close to bed. But what I found interesting about what you said regarding breathing techniques, obviously I know people who actually have proper techniques you should try when you meditate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I will link them in the description because they're not coming to my head.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
A lot of people I know recommend when you meditate, especially the guided ones, the more guided ones, are in through the nose, out through the mouth, but then holding them. So when you breathe in, hold, out, hold. And when you're breathing in, to focus on when it's coming in, sort of right at the back of your nose, right where the air's going in. Because I feel when I focus on that, then I'm really aware of my own breathing. So I'm like, this is the air moving. I'm actually feeling it. I don't know if you share the same.
I think from the breath perspective, yes, I agree. It depends on what gives you the most amount of feeling. I think I might have a bit of an advantage because I've been doing this for quite some time, and I got trained by somebody who, a monk, but it was to concentrate on the tip of your nose. But I have to say, I've been doing this for a little bit of more of time, so I kind of probably have the same level of awareness what you would feel at the top of your breath or the top of your nose. So internally, would you say? Is it just...
Yeah, I'd say more in. I'm not focused on here.
Here, you're more like the back of your throat?
Yeah, almost just before the back of the throat is where I sort of focus, because that's where I'm sort of feeling the air rush in.
Yeah.
And that, focusing on that point for me is like, that is the air coming in and going down, and I'm like, that's air moving and circulating, and I'm like...
Meditation is very unique to each person that does it. These are all techniques. Everyone can give you a technique, and you might find a technique that works for you. A few years ago, I met a lady who taught me mindfulness. It's mindful walking.
Okay.
It was an interesting way because she suggested that everybody go for a walk at lunchtime.
Yeah.
And that when we do it, that we should be mindful of the steps that we're taking. So when your foot goes onto the floor, the next step, so on. The good thing with that, I liked it because it made me go for walks at lunchtime, which is
Lovely.
really great. But it's the support that the planet gives you back. It's not about you putting the foot on the planet. There's equal and opposite force from the planet to support you. And
interesting.
She said that, and I think that really hit me. And I was like, "All right, it's not about me putting the step down. It's about the planet pushing you back up, so you wouldn't go sinking into the planet as such."
Very interesting.
It was a really lovely way of doing it, and I really enjoyed it. I don't think I do it. I don't practice that with every step, but when there is that option, it kind of resonated in the back of my mind. So if I do have a lovely, like a walk down the street or something, it's kind of interesting to see.
I think what's nice to take away from that is that there's so many techniques to try.
There's so many techniques. And the best thing is to try. Yeah. Whichever it might be, just try.
Well, I have two questions for you.
Go on.
First one, when I used to meditate, but this is, again, because you said you focus on sometimes with the steps, but sometimes not. When I used to focus on what parts of my body were really tense, especially the shoulders, I used to wear a bracelet. And so, and on what that bracelet meant to me is that if I see the bracelet, I need to stop and think about how my body feels. And
it's a trigger. It was a trigger.
To think about what the points of tension are in my body. So I stop, feel head to toe, go, I'm feeling a bit of tension in my feet. I feel like I got quite a lot of tension in my thighs and shoulders. And because obviously when you're moving with your arms, it's going to come across your vision at some point. I have a watch on here. I check the time. Bracelet's there.
You also check the time when you don't have a watch as well.
Yes, I do. Which is we're not going to get exposed on the podcast for that. But how do you feel about a trigger versus how you remember to be mindful?
I don't think I operate that way, Max. I think it's either inbuilt. I think I'm a little bit further in the sense like a good trigger for myself is if I'm getting flustered, for example. I might have had a difficult conversation with someone. I also worry about sort of what sort of energy do I have around me, or what I'm projecting, what they're projecting. I'm a bit sensitive to different people's energies as well. So having a trigger that might be just being aware of my surroundings and aware of how I might be reacting to something. I will take myself out of a situation if it is not a pleasant one. Yeah. And if I'm going into a situation that may be challenging, I make sure that I'm in a good mindset before I do that. So that allows me, maybe it's being more mindful generally, allowing me to recognize that. It's hard though. I find it very challenging.
That's why we call it a practice.
It is a practice. It is a practice. And you fall down, you get back up on, and just keep going.
And you learn from it's not a failure, and it's not even a mistake, it's an experience.
It is an experience. And I think, you're just being human, right? Yeah. So you're just being at the end of the day. Oh.
I feel like that's
sorry, I stole that from somewhere else. I had to put that in.
I feel like that's on a t-shirt that like someone...
you're just being. You're being a human being. That's all it is. I think none of us are perfect and no situation's perfect. It's how you react to it. So
one of the people I follow who does meditation, he says that if you sit down and do... He was recommending for building up time on doing meditation. So starting at 20, then going to an hour, then 2 hours, then 4 hours. When you do a meditation, if you start doing it and you go in with the intent to meditate, you have not failed because you've done it. You've started doing it. Because he's a big preacher on meditation as something that you should be doing and everyone should be doing. So the only failure is not even attempting it. And for him, it's like if you meditate, no matter whether it was a good session or a bad session, you've done it, and that is a success.
It's a session.
Yeah.
It is just a session. Yeah. I completely recommend different forms of meditation. Because a lot of people are fearful of meditating as well because it might be a foreign concept, or it could be also looked as like a hippie activity to
yes,
do. It depends. I mean, you know, it could be, but you might be surprising yourself that there are so many things people do that are meditation. Like some people might have a lucky coin that they move around that and they watch that. So meditation doesn't necessarily mean one thing.
And it's interesting because I think everyone's going to find a different way. There will not be two ways the same, but it's interesting what you said about how people view it.
I was going to actually ask you, can we talk about Headspace? Because it's a really great app.
Go for it.
I would say anybody who wants to give a trial, they have a free trial. It allows you to play around with the app, and it's readily available, very well explained. And I think anybody who wants to give it a go with this methodology that they're explaining to you step by step, please persevere with it, and just try it and keep going. And you can try from 3 minutes to 10 minutes to start with. I can't remember exactly. But you could choose the amount of time you want to spend on it as well. So I would totally recommend that app. It's a very good one.
And my sister loves it.
How did you discover?
It was through YouTube, through actualized.org, which I'll mention. He's the guy who basically... He's the guy who I mentioned to you because I think whenever I've had a problem that I haven't been able to discuss with a person, my first thought is to find someone on YouTube who talks about it.
Wow.
So with tinnitus, it was Julian Cowell, who I recommend because his videos saved me regarding that aspect of my life. And then for actualized.org, meditation. And she found it through the app Headspace, my sister. But everyone's got it a little bit different. And we're not sponsored by Headspace, but if they want to, if there's someone from Headspace listening, we're always open. We're always open to the old sponsorship.
Yeah, I think it's getting that information out there to say there are different options. And I picked up one as a kid, introduced to me from a very different background. And it has helped me throughout my life. And when things are challenging, I drop into a space where I find... But it can also be used to get a clarity. So that's why I said I like meditating in the morning. Yeah. Because it sets me up for the day. And it changes your viewpoint. So, I think there's so many options. I would just say try. And I think you're trying so many different ones.
I might have to try this walking one now. That's interesting because... this was my other question I wanted to ask you was about sitting cross-legged with a straight back.
Yep.
Because I'm someone who struggles with that. I find it horribly uncomfortable. And when I do my strong determination sits, my right foot always goes numb really quick. My back always feels painful from at least 20 minutes in. And so I think it's one of those things that I've personally struggled with to just ignore. And well, not even just ignore, just to do. So what would you recommend as someone who enjoys that style of meditation for someone who has been meditating just sitting on a chair?
You can do that.
But for the transfer, if you wanted to try something new, what would you recommend for someone who usually meditates sat in a chair, transitioning into meditating sat cross-legged on the floor?
Oh, wow. I would just say try. So, Max, my legs fall asleep too. Yeah. It's totally normal. Yeah. We're human. And I would guess when you first started sitting down on the ground, you weren't able to do 20 minutes of it, right?
Well, I know the first time I did it was the strong determination set. I did it for the whole hour.
And both your legs fell asleep and you couldn't, did you have to roll off the ground?
When I finished, I made a stupid mistake as well because this is the one where I was, you stay still for the whole thing.
Okay.
At least I had a cushion under me.
Yeah. But actually, lots of aids and stuff like
that. That made it easier.
That made it easier. Yeah. I because I've always sat on the floor, even with yoga class. Oh well, actually, in yoga classes they ask you to sit on a little block, the yoga block that helps people sit down and give them a little bit of space. I think to sit down. I don't choose that option, but I've heard yoga teachers say that. I would just say try. Yeah. Try, but don't. Everything's adaptable. If you can't sit on the ground and meditate, sit on a chair and meditate. Yeah. If you can't sit, go for a walk and meditate. There are so many options. I think that there's the way to try. Just keep trying. I just say, just keep trying different ways.
The whole point of the meditation is to let go whatever's happening. Both of my feet have gone numb. My back hurts and I'm dribbling. I'm going to let it happen. And I tell you what, it's one of the best meditations I've ever had.
Okay.
Because I was just letting whatever happens happen. So by sort of, and this is hard to sort of articulate and experience, but about 40 or 45 minutes in, all of my experiences and thoughts kind of felt like one thing for a bit, where the pain in my back felt just as good as a thought in my head, because it was just life happening.
Yeah, so, wow. That's
which is why when I've always had these discussions, it's like meditation to me is understanding that just existing's enough, and anything else on top of that is just the icing on top, whether it's pain or whether it's beauty. Because by meditating, you just realize you just exist. And I just got a skim of it. And I know I've only scratched the surface. I know I have.
Have you had that feeling since?
No. I got it with the first one. I don't think I've had it since. And I feel like with that, I'm literally just scraping the top. Following actualized.org, I know how much more there is I can be exploring, which in a way is great because I know what's out there. In another way, it's like, I want to do it all. But that, I just got a little bit off the top. And it's so strange. Would you say you've had any moments of meditation that have been like, wow, that's a big step for you?
Wow. You do ask very, very good questions, Max. I think because my aim is to quieten my mind, my aim is slightly different. Have I found places where I'm completely quiet? Yes. So my aim is slightly different. It's experiencing that moment. Yeah, I would say, but I think I am just it just gives me a sense of calm. I think I use meditation for a different.
And that's fine.
Yeah, I think that is what I use it for, just to get calm. The busyness of the day to be quiet, and I think I'm very much process driven and very practical in that sense. So I'm like, here we go. That's cool. Sorry.
Time to do this thing. Yeah.
I'm
a bit like that. You know, when you have a calendar and you always got things to look forward to. I feel like I'm one of those people where I use meditation to try and bring me back to the now, which may sound cliche.
I completely understand what you mean by that, because it is about being present. Yeah. It's moving away from all of the distractions around you and being present in that moment. Yeah.
Because being mindful, one thing I've noticed about myself is that when I talk to people around me about situations and events, I always look at the future. That's where my mind first goes. So the first thing I want to tell people, I'm always telling people what I'm doing next. Okay. So I'm always thinking to myself, I'm thinking about where I'm going next. And interestingly, I'm going for dinner with some friends next. And I'm thinking about the food.
Food right now. Okay. So your mind is in food. Okay. That's it. He's left the building.
I'm eating at the Dolphin, and you know how good their food is.
The food is very good there.
And not that they advertise us either, but the Dolphin in Canterbury, being a very Ken-based show, can highly recommend.
Yep. But I would completely agree with you there. They do very good food.
Do you know what I mean about how some people will only focus on past events?
Yeah.
And I do the same with sort of future events, and meditation kind of pulls everyone towards the centre.
To the centre. Yeah, wow. That made me think of that. So, we don't know what's going to happen in the future.
No.
The past is not something we can change. You're here. That's it. This is it. This is all it is.
Yeah, what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Recording this podcast. Even though you're hearing this on probably the 15th of August.
A little while away.
Yeah, which is the future.
But we're in preparation of it.
But in the present, we're in somewhere in July. And
can I ask you a question?
You can indeed.
When you said earlier that you make a time to meditate, I choose the morning because it sets me up for the day. Do you find that comes automatically to you, or do you have to set a specific time for you to do that meditation?
I set an approximate time. So in the evening at about this time. And it's usually, I want to make it before bed, but being a freelancer, sometimes bedtime is 9 o'clock in the evening, and sometimes it's 2 in the morning, and sometimes it's usually somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Whenever it's before bed. So I imagine you've got the same sort of thing where, like, when you wake up, but you've got a more stricter work schedule, would you say?
Yeah, I would say I have a very Monday to Friday work schedule. It's more to do with setting up the day for me. So I think having a time. So would you say having a time that's sort of dedicated, like before you go to sleep, or when you wake up, or at your lunchtime?
Well, it makes you do it. I think we've discussed this sort of thing about routine a lot on this podcast, relating to different things. In the episode I'll link below with Connor, where we talked about mental health in sport, we talked about how, because he did rock climbing, and having the routine of rock climbing once a week, or twice a week actually, meant that he saw the people twice a week at least. So you have that sense of calm and relief, because if it's only something you sort of half do, you can go weeks and months without seeing people and you miss the enjoyment. But he knows that time is dedicated for that event, because it takes you away from like just sitting at home on your phone. It's a sense
more
of
distracted. This is more distracted with people.
But in a way, it's because it's putting him in a situation which
social
is
situation,
social and physical. Because instead of doing yoga, he does rock climbing in it.
You've hit something really clever there, because I think to have a mind that can meditate, you need to have a body that can then support you. I think the balance of the physical and the mental is kind of needed. So it allows you to find that balance. I think if anybody, like I used to dance when I was younger, to be able to dance and move, it is almost like meditation to me, because it was just that you hit that point of like happy, clear, and just you can reach that. So your friend is reaching that point with rock climbing and having that post yoga buzz, or it could be somebody else going for a run and having that sense of like, tap into that mindfulness as well and tap into that meditative state. It can be hit with different activities.
And would you say, because we both go to badminton, which we also discussed the same sort of thing in episode 3 with Joe about badminton. Would you say, because I get that feeling from badminton.
I get that feeling from pool.
Really? Interesting.
Because, no, you mean the meditative state or the... I think for me, badminton, yes. Pool, yes. Because they're very technical.
Yeah.
You have to be clear to be able to play the shot that you're playing. You have to get your technique right. And if you can't get there, you need to find how you do that as well. And
that's an excuse to call Joel out, to get him on the podcast to talk about running the pool nights. Because that's interesting. I didn't think about pool like that.
He's doing a lot of... what he's doing with getting everybody together in one place to be able to create. He's creating the social environment to be able to get people a social avenue. It's really important, because it's very hard to find friends when you move to a new city, and have something like that through like Meetup, and to be able to be open to anyone to come join within the boundaries of making some friends. That's fabulous.
And while Meetup is a social media app where you go and you just meet new people and do events, me and Dan in our social media episode, we talk about that in tons of detail. So I'm definitely...
I look forward to listening to that, actually.
Well, no, that one's the first episode. That's been out for months now.
Okay, then I have to go listen to it.
Yeah, we talk about...
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
It's like, I'm sorry, Max, I did not listen to that one.
But no, we talked about that in a lot of detail. So I think the social balance... Because it's difficult. You've got to balance work, relationship, social, and then time for yourself. It's important.
I think time for yourself is the number one.
Yeah.
If you haven't got yourself together, how can you take care of the rest?
That's true. Yeah.
That's got to be your priority.
And I think when I joined Meetup and did meditation, I didn't realize at the time I was actually making myself more ready for being social and able to form close relationships.
Yeah.
Because before that, like me a couple of years ago wouldn't have been able to be as open or ready for a relationship or a very close group of friends in the way that I am now. Because you don't realise until you look back. I don't know
you from when you were back then. So can you describe to me what you were like before you were the current version of Max?
You see, I think current Max started in 2018 on New Year's Day. Not because of a cringy New Year's resolution, but because it was my first meetup.
Oh, right.
Was New Year's Eve 2017 going into 2018, where I met Paul Kidman, who does badminton. Yep. We're going to be getting Paul on the podcast, actually. Yep. But And then at the end of the night, I'm leaving the pub, and Paul grabs my shoulder. I hadn't even really spoken to him, and he just says, "Do you want to play badminton?" And that kick-started it, and kick-started my social push. But me, before that, I was very internal. I didn't have a lot of friends at all in any facet. I wasn't confident. I wouldn't have run a podcast. Definitely not. I had a lot more self-doubt, and I didn't have any real connections or confidence. And I feel like social cues didn't pick up on as easily because I didn't have that experience. And so coming to meet up and having basically a new start, like what you said with a new city, I was still in the same city but had a new start.
Of course.
And so I think, for moving to a new place, I think it's a good point to touch on that idea of having a way in. Because Connor, when he was talking about rock climbing, he said that he moved from Margate to Canterbury, which isn't a big move.
But it is a big move depending on your circumstances.
But for him it is.
It's very personal.
Not in terms of physical distance, but he had to restart his life here. And the rock climbing was a big thing that built his social life. But so that is what Chammi and I have had to say so far about meditation and mindfulness and sport and everything.
And everything. Life.
We've talked about everything in this episode, Chammi. But do you have a story to tell about this subject? If so, feel free to leave us a comment on YouTube, or you can contact the Facebook page at the My Generation Podcast. We'll be featuring all your comments over the next few episodes. Might be able to get Chammi back in to address some comments if we get lots of good ones. And if you also want to, I brought up this idea with Mike as well, but send in a soundbite. If you can, send us a link to a couple of minutes of you talking about your experiences with meditation. We'd love to compile some of them so we can get some reaction from potential future guests or Chammi or myself, just to hear what you have to say in a slightly longer form, as I know it's not always the easiest to get across what you want to say in a YouTube comment as well. But I'm going to come back to, in just a moment, local impact. I'm just going to tease some next topics we've got coming up. So I'm going to be talking about long walks soon. We might be getting Harry Monday, our second guest, to talk about that a bit more as well. And we're also going to be having the return of Dan Inwood. Dan Inwood's back on the podcast. The episode's already been recorded and it was so much fun. We had a really loose and free discussion we talked about life-changing moments, but that conversation goes all over the place.
I look forward to hearing
more all over the place than we have here, but that's Dan's an amazing guest and we're glad to have him back. And we're also going to be hearing about the power of music from Connor Jenkins, again, who we mentioned, talked about rock climbing. He's going to be back in a few weeks' time. So if you've got any comment about the power of music, we're collating them. We've been collating them for the past few months. If music's influenced your life in any way, put it in a comment or a soundbite. Send it to us, because we've been collating them for months and we're going to put all of them to Connor, who is a musician himself, and see what he feels about all of your words. But we'll be going back to Chammi now to talk about local impact, because we're a very Kent-based show. So just before we finish the show, I'd like to talk about what you'd recommend for someone living in Kent specifically, who wants to get into meditation for the first time. What would you recommend to someone in Kent?
I would say, personally, living in Kent for only a year, I personally, for our age group, I would say go for the app.
Yes.
And go for Headspace or the equivalent app that can give you some information. Go on YouTube. There are a lot of guided meditations, people who have been meditating for many years, talking about their experiences. And you'd probably also find people who didn't like meditation and they tried something else. You know, find other ways as well. So I think use the technology that's around you and the avenues that's available. But I suppose if you are just a general topic, if people are religious, they may be talking to your pastors, monks, gurdwaras, wherever you might be practicing. Ask them about meditation, because every major religion has meditation attached to them.
Yes.
So it's in a different format, might be more suitable for you. So it could find that you might be able to get some information there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you for that. We're going to be going back to Chammi in just a moment to wrap up the show about mindfulness and meditation. But there are future topics we are still looking for guests to talk about. So if you're able to talk about any of these points, please do contact the page, because we're looking for future guests. So the first is a guest about cycling. I do a lot of cycling in the countryside. And if you live between 18 and 30 and live in Kent, please do get in touch with the page. That's the topic that we are still looking for someone to talk about. And again, more specifically, the power of music. Please do get those comments and messages in. I'm just reiterating it. So I really, really want to hear. I have a couple of stories myself, but I want to get everyone's opinion in before we talk to Connor about that subject. So, Chammi, to wrap up today's hour-long episode so far, but probably going to be a bit shorter in the edit, about the My Generation podcast.
Yeah.
What would you say, just summing up briefly, in a few words or a few sentences, what you've taken away from today's discussion?
Thank you for the experience. This is my first ever podcast that I've really enjoyed it. Talking to you is always a pleasure. It's great.
I'm blushing. You can't see.
Seriously, just hanging out and talking. We could do this for hours. You're right. We can definitely do this for hours. From a discussion perspective for what you're doing with this kind of work, thank you for putting it out there. I think just to say thanks for that. For the mindfulness and the meditation, everyone just give it a go. See if it's your cup of tea. And encourage people that you know around you to try it as well. And if it doesn't work, find another way. Yeah. It's called a practice for a reason, isn't it? So, yeah, thank you.
And no pressure on yourself. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Chammi, and thank you for your kind words at the end.
My pleasure.
You guys can't see my blushing.
He's going red.
That's the power of radio. We can hide that from the audience. But thank you so much for coming on. Will we be able to get you back on potentially to talk about this in even more detail? We've only done 1 hour here. We could talk about it forever.
Yeah, I think we'll find some more. Actually, I think what the question you asked about the local things being Kent-based, there might be lots of other resources we don't know about. I might be able to look into that and see. I'm never tapped into that, so it's my personal experience. Let's see what we can find. Great. I'd love to come back and talk to you.
And let Chammi know how she did in the comments, because I think she's done an amazing job. First ever podcast. And
thank you.
And now she's blushing. We got it. So thank you all for listening. So much more to come. We got long walks, cycling, returning guests, music. So much more to come, and we're very excited to bring you it here on the My Generation podcast, the Kent show. But if you're not from Kent, thank you for listening anyway. Because, what we've talked about today has been mainly very general and can apply to literally anyone. But if you know someone who might also want to get in touch about getting on the show, comments below, Facebook, at the My Generation podcast. And we will hear from you again next week, where I'll be doing a solo talk, then Dan after that. Thank you for listening, everyone, and see you in the next episode of the My Generation podcast.